Hello, everybody. Thank you for attending the Basics of Cybersecurity. My name is Mike Sheila. I am the Director of Marketing and Business Development for Advantage Industries. We are a cybersecurity-focused managed IT company that is located in Columbia, Maryland. And before we get into a lot of the details today, I want to just share with you who is Mike Sheila and, frankly, why should you care? And it's not letting me do that. What happened? Hold on. There we go. Arrows, no. Enter key, yes. So who is Mike Sheila and why should you care? I got my first technology sales job in 1999 here in Maryland, and I've probably spoken to somewhere in the neighborhood of 500 different business owners, or what I would call a C-level executive. So in my industry, I often talk to the CIO, Chief Information Officer. I talk to the CISO, the Chief Information Security Officer. I talk to the CFO, the Chief Financial Officer. And I talk to the COO, the Chief Operations Officer. I talk to all of those people because technology impacts every aspect of business. Every aspect. So when you think about making strategic decisions around technology and cybersecurity, it's not just affecting you or your department. It's affecting everyone. And that's something that people, I think they understand it intellectually, but they don't think about the practical application of it. So today, I'm going to go through some basic stuff. I'm not an engineer. I was just chatting with the team before we started recording. I'm a graduate of UMBC, class of 1995. I have a degree in English literature. So I am eloquent, but I am by no means a nerd. Though I am the default IT support for my entire family whenever somebody needs help with their iPad or their laptop or their Fire Stick. So let's talk about some basics around cybersecurity. We're going to talk about the basics before we get into the basics. In 2021, the average cost of responding to a cybersecurity breach was $1.2 million. Now, go ahead and Google that. You'll get wide numbers all over the place. The most reasonable number I saw was $1.2 million. That's a big number, right? So think about this for a second. That's the average. So you're a small business owner. You got 10, 15, 20 employees. Okay? Let's take 10%. So $120,000. Ask yourself, do you have $120,000 set aside for your business to pay for recovery from a cyber attack? The overwhelming majority of businesses that I talk to say no, they would have to dip into payroll. They'd have to dip into their rent or their mortgage. They'd have to dip into the other already claimed money for their business, and it would crush their cash flow, which is why over 90% of businesses that experience a cyber attack don't recover. It's a staggering. So yeah, everybody's heard about P.F. Chang's cyber breach. They've heard about Target's cyber breach because those make the paper because that's a big deal. For every big deal, City of Baltimore, for every big deal you read about in the paper, there were 200 other little companies that just couldn't, they couldn't. Between the lawsuits, they had to file for bankruptcy to protect themselves. And they're no longer a business. So I know that's kind of scary. The good news is there are some really simple things that you can do to protect yourself personally as well as professionally. And that's what today's presentation is about. So let's start with the dark web. Maybe you've heard that term. So think about it this way. I'm coming to you live from the Magic offices in beautiful Main Street, Westminster. And sure, there's crime around here, but very little comparatively. It's a nice neighborhood. You can walk these streets at 10 o'clock at night. You can't do that in most of Baltimore City and feel safe. The dark web is someplace that you don't want to walk at night because that's where all the criminals hang out. That's where they exchange your information. So you can go to haveibeenpwned.com. You can enter in your personal email. You can enter in your business email. And it will show you how many different websites have been breached that have your contact information. It's very sobering. So I ran my work email for Advantage Industries before coming on today, and happy to say, one incident that was data scraping. So data scrapings are less dangerous than somebody actually getting your login and user. Data scraping means it's information on the surface that doesn't take a whole lot of effort for the people to get their hands on. So I showed up at a data scrape. Now, I entered my personal email, and by the way, somebody got a hold of all my credentials and opened up a bank account about a year ago because my stuff was all over the dark web. So I put in my Yahoo email, and I had, I think, 30 different incidents where my credentials showed up for sale on the dark web as a result of a breach. So, you're jokingly saying, well, I'm broke. They can have my credentials. Well, what this person did was they went and opened a bank account in Baltimore City in my name to pretend to be me so they could start building a secondary profile. And they can do that with your business credentials as well. So the first thing you do, multi-factor authentication. Most of you watching this have seen that term before, and you probably use it at least in a limited fashion. For example, you log into your bank account. Hey, today's payday. Want to make sure they got my check right. So you log into your bank. When you do that, ask for your username, ask for your password, and then it will send you a text or an email, or it may even use a second app that you have to log into to verify that you are you. If you clean your cookies out of your computer, and that's a nerd term for basically how the universe pays attention to everything you're doing on the internet. They use cookies to follow you. If you clear that out of your computer and you go to log into Facebook, Facebook will say, hey, I don't know who's logging in. And it'll actually send you a notification on the Facebook app and say, hey, Mike, are you trying to log into your account here in Westminster? I tap yes, and it lets me log in. That's multi-factor authentication. Most people use it for one or two things. Why don't you use it for your computer? You have 15 different applications that you use for work. Why aren't you using it for work? Why aren't you using it for payroll? Why aren't you using it for HR? Why aren't you using it for invoicing? Why aren't you using it for contract management for your clients? It's very easy to implement, and it goes a long way towards protecting your data. Hard drive encryption. This one's super easy. You can go into basically any computer and activate hard drive encryption, or you can download an inexpensive piece of software to do it. So what happens here? Let's say you're on your way to a baseball game, and you're gonna have a few beers, so you don't want to drive, so you take an Uber. And you leave your laptop in the Uber. By the time you realize what you've done, and you follow through, you can't find your laptop, You don't know where it is. So anybody can pop a hard drive out of a computer, pop it into a port that you can buy for about $20 on Amazon, and read everything on that hard drive, unless it's encrypted. So take the step, encrypt your hard drive, and protect your personal data, protect your business data, protect your client data. I was just having a conversation before we got started today that I met with a new prospective client last Friday. He goes, well, we keep everything in the cloud. I don't save anything locally to my hard drive. And his partner who was in the meeting with me said, oh, I download everything locally. I have a local copy of everything, every attachment, everything. So that's a policies and procedures question. But think about how many times you unintentionally download something when you want to view it. Encrypt your hard drive. It's simple, it's low cost, and it goes a long way to protecting your business. Antivirus and anti-malware. Used to be this was the bee's knees. Like, you want to protect your business? You get McAfee, you get Avast, you fill in the name. Malwarebytes. They're all good. Your Microsoft computer comes with Windows Defender for free. You know why? It's in Windows' best interest. It's in Microsoft's best interest to protect your device. Turn on Windows Defender. Now, for you Apple users, I've had 2 incidents of this in the last 6 months, and both times I wanted to go into the Genius Bar and just throttle the person at the Genius Bar. My daughter went in, she has a MacBook Pro, she's a graphic design major in college, and it was overheating. And I ran through my basic troubleshoots. I said, run this, make sure that. No, still, okay, take it in the Genius Bar, have them look it over. The person that helped her at the Genius Bar said, why are you running Avast? She goes, well, that's my antivirus. He goes, oh, you don't need that. Apple products don't need antivirus. That is a lie. It's a lie, it's a lie, it's a lie. Now, are Apple products more secure than the average Microsoft machine? Yes. But that's kind of like saying you're valedictorian of summer school. It is not something worth bragging about. Just because they are better does not make them foolproof. And again, there's tons of options out there that are free or low cost. We're not talking a lot of money here to dramatically improve the security, again, of your personal devices as well as your professional devices. We run a managed antivirus and anti-malware for every customer above and beyond Windows Defender. And we check for updates. When Microsoft pushes out a new update, we evaluate it to make sure that it has updates from a security standpoint. And we implement those immediately. Now, the non-security updates, we let those wait a week, just to get the bugs worked out. But we implement the 0-day security as soon as they're available, because we don't want that exploit to be the reason that you're not protected. So what is phishing? Frankly, phishing is the reason that I have a job. So I've been with my company now for 3 years, and like any good sales professional, I go into the CRM and I find this list of companies that people have talked to in the past but never got anywhere with. So I find this one property management company, and I reach out to the CEO and say, hey, we'd love to talk to you, see if there's ways that we can work together. She agrees, we have a conversation, and she says, well, my CFO is really driving this decision, so you're gonna have to meet with her. And I said, okay, sounds good. So I follow up with her, and I follow up with her, I follow up with her, I follow up with her. And she doesn't get back to me for months. So I put it on the back burner, working on other stuff. 3 months later, I get a chat message from one of the guys on my help desk who happens to know the IT director at this property management company. 350 employees, one IT person managing all that. And her message to him was, we're ready to talk. So I call, and suddenly the CFO is now responding to my emails. And we'd like to make a quick decision. We'd like to move forward on things. How much does this cost? Not arguing with me about price, not arguing with me about our strategy. Just, we need to get things done. So here's why. They literally missed wire transferring $50,000 by that much. So phishing is part of social engineering. So when a hacker gets into your network, they very rarely do bad things the moment they get in. That was the old school way. That's so 1995. Today, a hacker gets a username and a password, they sit in the background and they watch. How do you sign your emails? What words do you use when you ask one of your employees to do something for you? What bank do you use? What's the ABA and routing number? What's something unusual that would be plausible? So for example, if you're the owner and you've never been to Honduras and suddenly one of your employees gets a message saying, hey, I'm in Honduras, will you send me $1,000? That's not really them. But if you take your vacation in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina every summer, and the hacker knows that, and the hacker sends a message that says, hey, I'm in Myrtle for the week. We just got a message from one of our clients, and we need to wire transfer them $50,000 to refund them for something we did. That's much more plausible. That's exactly what happened to this customer. Now, the only reason the $50,000 didn't go through is because their bank has a policy that anything over $10,000 must be verbally authorized by the CFO. Imagine the CFO's shock when she got that phone call saying, hey, you want us to send this $50,000? I certainly do not. And that was her wake-up call. And those attacks happen every single day. So the way that you overcome things like phishing is by having cybersecurity training. Now, unfortunately, most companies do their cybersecurity training at the annual kickoff meeting, where it's the fire hose day. You've got all your employees in one room, you're buying them some buffet lunch to feed everyone, and the owner says 20 minutes, and the HR director says 20 minutes, and the lady from finance does 20 minutes, and then your IT person does 20, and right on down the line. And there's some funny thing with throwing paper balls at each other at one point or another. It's fun. And then at 4 o'clock, when everybody's ready to go home, they go, okay, here's your cyber training. They show you this 5-minute video. They go, don't do that. You can get cyber training on a monthly basis for your staff for around $2-3 per person per month. It's not a lot of money. But that monthly reminder, hey, here are the things you should be looking out for. Hey, that was a fake email you clicked on. Here's what you should have found in that fake email. Now you're better preparing your organization so that you don't fall for these tricks. Update your computers. One of my favorite things about doing this presentation is I get to tell real stories. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not dramatizing. I'm telling you things that I actually see and hear on practically a daily basis. So a little over a year ago, started working with a prospective client that owns a printing company down in Landover, Maryland. And printing, posters, magazines. They print anything. They've got all these wide format machines. Half their office was just big machines to print stuff with. They do all kinds of work like that. And they wanted an evaluation of what they had in place. So big office, about 40 employees, big warehouse, lots of trucks, lots of paper everywhere. We're walking through the building, and there was lots of red flags. Like, they had 2 servers, they had no idea what they did, and they didn't know the username and password to log in. We couldn't find a firewall. We walked into one room, and one of their employees had 2 computers set up. They had a Windows computer and they had a Mac computer. But because it was still in the middle of COVID, she was working remotely from home. So she had used like this remote tunnel that you could download for free so that you could remote into her Mac and do work on it. It's just lots of bad security things. But the thing that really got me while I was there is at the very end of the meeting, as we're about to walk out, I noticed in the corner a dot matrix printer. Now, some of you may not know what that is, and that's okay. I'm old. I'm 50 years old. When I was in high school, you would literally buy a printer with a ribbon, and it would peck the characters onto the paper for you, like a typewriter. But it was a computer-driven typewriter, essentially. And it used lots of little dots to do that. Dot matrix printer. I saw that and I said, does that work? And they said, yes, we use it to print labels for all of our clients. I said, okay, we'll probably get you something that's very inexpensive, that doesn't require you to buy $100 printer ribbons on eBay because you can't find them anymore. And I noticed right next to it was an old school computer. When I say old school, remember the monitors used to be like 1.5 feet wide, and they weighed like 30 pounds, just the monitor, not the computer or anything, just the monitor. And it was asleep, so it had a screensaver, and the screensaver said Windows 98. And I said, what does that do? They said, well, it's the only computer we could use with the dot matrix printer. I said, of course. Makes sense to me, because that's probably the last time you could buy a dot matrix printer off the shelf. And I said, but that's not connected to the internet or your local area network, right? They go, oh, of course it is. How do you think we all access it? So you're using a computer that literally has not gotten a security update since 1998. And I'd like to say that's an isolated incident, but I see that all the time. So update your computers, update the operating system, or get rid of them, because they're doing you far more harm than good. Managed detection and response. So this is a really cool tool. And it's relatively inexpensive. There are lots of great options out there. It used to be that if you wanted to get something like this, you really did have to be a larger company, because they were starting them at 100 or 200 seats licensed per month. So you really had to be a bigger company. You had to be an emerging mid-market or even an enterprise level company. And you were looking at substantial setup fees. You were looking at a monthly recurring charge. And equally important, you had to have somebody look at the data. So you had to pay someone to look at the data. Now, there are a whole bunch of great organizations out there that will license this to you, regardless of whether you have 2 employees or 2,000. And they charge you $4 or $5 a seat per month. So it's really inexpensive. So what does it do? All right, so let's go back to my vacation scenario I gave. You go to vacation, Myrtle Beach, every summer. If you're a business owner, there's a 95% likelihood that you're taking some work with you, because you just can't help yourself. You can't leave your team to run things while you're gone. So, family's out at the pool, they're enjoying some fun time, you're like, I'll take 10 minutes to log in and check my emails. So you log in, and you're using the local Wi-Fi hotspot at the resort that you're staying at. Managed detection and response would say, hey, they've never logged in from this place before. Is it really them? It then has a human alerted to reach out and say, Mike just logged in from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina with his username and password for his email. Let's verify that that's Mike. Person picks up the phone and says, hey, Mike, are you in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina? Yes, I am. Okay. Things go on as they should. 99 out of 100 times, though, when it detects one of those, the person isn't actually there. Some hacker got a hold of their username and their password. And they're pretending to be them. And the biggest giveaway is it almost always happens in the middle of the night, because this is almost always on the other side of the world where they can't extradite you to America for charges. Managed detection and response. It's a very affordable tool that goes a very long way to protect your business. Password manager. Who knew saving your password in Google Chrome or Firefox or Microsoft Edge was a bad idea? If you ask a hacker, they say it's a great idea. Because if they get in, they now have access to everything. So password managers are great. Again, inexpensive. Password managers do functionally two things. First, it'll create a password for everything for you that you don't have to remember. So that's great. You're not using Myrtle Beach 2022 as your password anymore. And that password manager will not only encrypt it, but multi-factor authenticate it. So when you log in first thing in the morning, you click the little icon so that you can access all your business platforms, your payroll, your HR, your quoting system, everything that you need in a given day. And by doing that one authentication in the morning, it allows you access to everything. Now, if you log out of your computer, fly to Myrtle Beach, open your computer back up, it'll require you to authenticate again. It takes 30 seconds for you to authenticate. A low-cost, simple, powerful tool. Firewall. I'm dumbfounded at the number of businesses that do not use a firewall. Well, I have everything in the cloud. Why do I need a firewall in my office? Why do you have an office? If you have an office, use a firewall. Now, specifically, you want to look for one that is FIPS certified, which is the Federal Information Processing Standards. Firewalls can be updated, which is great. The downside to that is they do have a shelf life. Firewalls, typically speaking, 5 years is a good rule of thumb. Sometimes you can go a little longer, but if your company's growing, you may outgrow your firewall. Number of concurrent sessions, bandwidth it can support, all of those things. But if you've got even 30 employees, you can get a quality entry-level firewall for around $1,000. That includes configuration, and you'll spend maybe $100 or $200 a year for all the updates to have it, quote-unquote, managed for you. Don't skip this. It's really simple. And I won't even go into the laundry list of benefits that having a firewall does for your business, but spend the time. Spend a little bit of money to go a long way to protect your business. You're noticing a theme here? Backup services. Anybody remember writing a paper in college and suddenly the power goes out and you go and reboot your computer and it's not there because you didn't save it? I know I do. That's why you back up stuff. That's why you have a service to back up. Now, depending on how you're configured, for example, Microsoft 365 automatically backs up everything. Full disclosure, my company's a Microsoft certified partner. We do a lot of work with Microsoft. We think they do a good job. No, they're not perfect, but they do a good job, so we like them. They automatically back up everything. Depending on the client, we'll put a physical backup at their office as well. Because if something were to ever happen to Microsoft, we just want our clients to have that backup. Now, it used to be a bigger deal, but test it. Every 6 months, go into whatever backup solution you're using, verify. Is it backing up every night at midnight like it's supposed to? Do I have my data from yesterday, or did it not do that for some reason? Set up the service, test it once every 6 months. Cyber insurance. I do not sell cyber insurance. I will be the first person to tell you it is not either or. It is and both. You need an organization like mine or internal IT department to handle all the technicals of your business. Laptops, firewalls, routers, switches, wireless access points, all of that stuff. You need cyber insurance. Talk to your insurance provider, because here's why. First of all, practically everything that I have gone through today is now required by your insurance carrier to get insurance. Because in 2021, the cyber insurance industry lost money. And insurance people don't lose money. So their risk assessors went back through and said, okay, everybody's going to get doubled or tripled their rate, first of all. Secondly, in order for you to renew at this new doubled or tripled rate, you're going to do these 5 things. You're going to do these 10 things. You're going to do these 20 things. And you're going to show us proof that you did them, or we're not going to insure you. I actually had a medical nonprofit in Washington, D.C. tell me that their cyber insurance response form was 72 pages. That's what the insurance company said to them. That wasn't how they responded. That was what the insurance company required they fill out. Now, that is unusual. But when you consider that they had HIPAA, which is the compliance framework for medical, and they had PCI, which is the compliance framework for credit card processing, and they were a nonprofit, the list goes on and on and on of reasons why their response was so sophisticated and had to be. Talk to your insurance provider, evaluate options. There's a small handful of really good companies out there, and I'm not going to throw anyone under the bus. But in short, if they're not asking you to do everything that you've seen in this presentation today, you ought to ask yourself why. Because every single one of these is simple and affordable, if not free. Where should my business start? Well, you can do everything that I just showed you, and you don't need a ton of help to do those things. If you follow this presentation, you do some Googling, you'll find some products, you get them all set up. Even though you're not super tech savvy, you don't have to be to do practically everything that I showed you today. Most of it's very straightforward. If you're watching this going, wow, I really do need to take this more seriously. Good for you, by the way. Of course, I'd be happy to help you. You don't have to do business with me. That's my sales pitch. The National Institute of Standards and Technology has laid out the map for you. They have a compliance framework that is known as NIST, N-I-S-T 800-171. It is the basic framework that almost every cybersecurity compliance protocol out there is based on. HIPAA's based on it, CMMC is based on it, PCI is based on it, any other acronym you want to throw out there is based on it. There are 110 requirements to satisfy NIST 800-171. Now that is complicated. That I recommend you do hire a third-party auditing agency to go through with you. Because as much as anything, it's less about the tech. The tech is important. I'm not trying to say it isn't. Tech is very important. But there is a policies and procedures manual that must be created, must be edited and updated on a quarterly basis, and must have a physical copy. Because, internet. If you're suddenly locked out of everything, you need to be able to access that, and your staff needs to know, hey, this is where it is. This is what I'm supposed to do if I'm hacked. Now, you don't need a copy for every employee, but you need to educate your staff. Hey, if something bad happens, I go to Bob or I go to Mary. And then Bob or Mary crack out the policies and procedures manual, go, this is how we're going to handle this. One of my favorite things from the HIPAA framework is it uses the statement, have you taken reasonable and appropriate action to prevent this from occurring? The overwhelming majority of you watching this today, the answer is nope, sure haven't. Over 90% of you have not. Voluntarily. Let me qualify that. There are plenty of people that have gotten the, we need to talk to you, and have been forced to do an audit because they were breached and didn't know about it until somebody decided to sue them. You don't want to be that person. Be proactive. This presentation today is a fast start. Won't cost you a ton of money. If you really do want to take it seriously, reach out to an organization like mine. We'll discuss your needs. We'll let you know how to begin. We'll let you know which framework makes the most sense for your business and how you should approach it, how you should budget for it. How do you create a plan of actions and milestones so that you can document how you're going to get there? Thank you all for listening to me today. I like to say that once you know how to spell my name, I'm very Googleable. I'm available on every major social media platform out there. You'll find me on LinkedIn, you'll find me on Facebook, you'll find me on Twitter, you'll find me on Instagram. And depending on which platforms, it's a little more work versus pleasure or pleasure versus work. But I always do the work thing on any of them. I'm happy to engage, happy just to take your phone call. No sales pitch. Ask me a question. Mike, I didn't understand what you said today. Could you explain that a little more? How does that impact a business like mine? If I don't know the answer, I'll get it for you. I will make that commitment that I will go out and I will do the Googling and the research and say, okay, this is what you should do based on what you asked. So thank you all for your time, and come by in June. We've got coffee, we've got water, snacks, because I'm going to take a next step with the conversation we had today. We're going to get into some of the more particulars, and I saved some interesting stories as well.
Let's all give Mike a round of applause. Thank you, Mike. We'll take questions offline. For those of you in the live stream, be sure to come back in person next time. Thank you.